Welcome back to part 3 of the iOS Basics course. Today we will be looking at two of the most essential apps on the phone that are also highly related to each other, Photos and Camera. Let's take a look at the Camera app first, and some of the main buttons that we'll be using every time we go to take a picture. The first button, and the most important one by far, is the shutter button, labeled number 1 on the screen right now. Its main function is to take a picture when it's pressed. You can either lightly tap it to take a single picture, which we'll be trying to do most of the time, or hold it down to take a burst image, which will take about 10 pictures per second, which can be very handy when you're taking an action shot. Another very handy button is the flip camera button, which is labeled number 2 on the screen in the bottom right corner. This button will allow you to switch between the front and back camera, the front camera sometimes being called selfie mode. Tapping the flip camera button once will switch it from the front to the back camera or vice versa, and tapping it again will toggle it back to the original position. The final feature we'll talk about is focusing, which can be handy when you're trying to take a picture but your phone is only focusing on an object in the foreground or background, and you would like it to be switched. In order to focus on an object in the picture, tap anywhere on the screen to focus to that part of the image. You can also adjust the amount of exposure or light that's coming to that object by swiping up and down by the little sun icon that pops up when you tap there. Next, we'll talk about different types of images you can take with the Camera app. Directly above the white shutter button, you'll notice a series of words in a line. Each of these represents a different type of image you can take. The first one is just a regular photo, which, when you take a picture, will take a picture that fills up the entire screen. Next to that is Square Mode, which was a feature that was designed to be used with social media platforms such as Instagram when they wouldn't allow you to upload a picture in its entirety, only a square version of it. The only thing it will change is instead of taking a rectangular picture, it will take one that is square. There's also Panorama Mode, which is one of the hardest features to activate on the iPhone in my opinion. A panorama will allow you to take a picture that is much wider than a regular image and can be accessed by swiping right 4 times from the photo screen. The final type of an image is called Portrait Mode, which is only available on iPhone 8s and later. This will allow you to take very high quality, greatly exposed, and shallow depth of field pictures of normally people, although you can do it on any object that is about 4 to 5 feet in front of you. If you do have this feature on your phone, I highly recommend you try it out when taking a picture of yourself or someone else, because it really does make everybody look very, very good. All of these different types of images can be activated by placing your finger on the yellow photo button and swiping towards the right until you have reached the photo type that you want. There are also many different types of video that you can take using your Camera app. The first, just called Video, will take a normal video that takes up the entire screen, similar to a normal photo. The next is called Slo-Mo, which, you guessed it, is a slow motion camera. Use this when you're trying to film someone flip into a pool or jump on a trampoline, and your phone will automatically slow down the part of the video that it thinks had the action. The last feature is called Time-Lapse, which is designed to film something that goes over a course of anywhere between 2 minutes and 2 hours, and will string pictures that it takes every 3 seconds together to make it look like it went very quickly. Any of these can be activated by placing your finger on the yellow video button and swiping towards the left. You'll notice that the shutter button also changes color to red to signify that you're in a video. In order to start the video, press anywhere in the red circle, and to stop it, that same button will turn to a red square, which represents stop. Aside from the essential buttons that we discussed earlier, there are some other buttons that make up the Photos screen that we should discuss. The first one, labeled number 1 on the screen, is the Flash button. Clicking on this will give you 3 options: on, off, or auto. I recommend you leave it in auto mode, as your phone will use the daylight sensors in the hardware to determine when it's best to use flash. But if the phone does mess up and it's using flash when it shouldn't, you can go up here to turn it from auto to off or on whenever you choose. The next button, labeled number 2, is Live Mode. Live Mode is available on any phone 7 and up, and will actually allow your phone to take a picture that records video in the 2 seconds prior and after the shutter button being pressed. This can be cool if you want to capture everybody's expressions right before or after you take a picture. On the screen currently, Live is turned off because there's a slash through the Live button. But if you were to press it one more time, it would turn yellow and Live would be on. The only thing to think about with Live pictures is that they do take up about twice as much storage on your phone than a regular picture. The next button across the top of the screen is the Timer button. This can be very helpful if you are trying to take a group shot that you want to be in. This will give you 2 options when you click it: 3 seconds and 10 seconds. Choosing either one will wait that interval of time after you press the shutter button to take the picture. The final button, labeled number 4, is the Filters button. This is where you can choose filters such as sepia, black and white, or ones that change the colors to be very crazy in the picture before you take the image. I would recommend you don't really play with these filters very much, as they can all be added in after the fact, although you can't revert back to an original color scheme after you take a picture using a filter. Whenever any of these buttons are activated, they will turn yellow, and when they are disactivated, they will be white. The final feature that we'll look at is a great segue into the next app that we'll be looking at, which is your Direct Access to Photos button. This can always be found in the bottom left corner of the screen. You can look where the red arrow is pointing on the slide right now, and pressing on it will take you to the Photos app, where you can view all of the pictures that you have just taken, all the way back to the first pictures that you've ever taken on your device. You can also access your Photos app by going back to your home screen and clicking on the multicolored flower icon like you can see towards the left of the slide right now. Opening up your app will take you to the Photos pane, which is one of the 4 main menu items in the Photos app that you can see along the bottom of the screen. These are Photos, Memories, Shared, and Albums. Let's take a look at each. The Photos pane is how Apple wants you to view all of your pictures that you've taken throughout the history of your Apple mobile devices. It will show every single picture you've taken in reverse chronological order. And there are 3 different levels of organization to look at it: years, collections, and moments. On the screen right now, we're looking at moments, which will show you a pretty much daily summary of the pictures that you've taken, clumping every picture that was taken on the same day, time, and location into one group. If you click on the back button, which also has the word collections next to it in the top left corner, that will take us to our next level of organization, which we'll take a look at now. Collections is the second broadest level of organization and will typically clump photos together based on their general location over a period of several days to several weeks. You can see on the screen right now that my phone has clumped together all of the pictures that I took in Rome, as well as all the pictures I took in Sorrento, and then more pictures that I took up in my cabin. These are all mostly based on location, although they are somewhat considering the timing of all of these pictures when they do group them together. I find collections to be the least helpful, as it's not much less specific than moments, but it's not as broad as the next one that we'll be taking a look at, which is years. You can access this by doing the same thing we did on the previous screen and pressing the back button in the top left corner. Years is a feature that's most helpful when you're trying to go way back in time to access a picture from possibly several years ago. It will show you every single picture in an almost unusable format from each year clumped together. You would only do this if you're in the year 2019 and you wanted to go back to 2014 to access a picture that was roughly June. In this case, you would go back to 2014, click in the middle of that clump, and then zoom in until you found the picture that you've looked for. If you click a single picture from the Moments screen that we looked at a few slides ago, it will bring that picture up for a full screen view, as you can see on the slide right now. Now we'll discuss working with a single photo. There are three main features that we can talk about when it comes to dealing with one picture at a time. The first one is exporting that picture, or in other words, sharing it. If you look on the very bottom left of the bar, you can see a little box with an arrow coming out of it. This is the export button. If you click there, you'll be greeted with a couple of different options on how to share the picture, including sending it as a message, attaching it in an email, or using AirDrop, which is a very handy feature of sharing pictures between other Apple devices. Next to the export button on the bottom row is a little heart icon that we call the love button. This is very useful if maybe you've taken 25 of the same, almost the same family picture in a row, and there's one particular version of it that you like the most and you want to be able to come back to it. Pressing this love button will turn it into one of your favorite pictures, which will then in turn place it into your favorites album, which we'll discuss in a few slides. The final button along the bottom there is the delete button. This will delete the picture that's in front of you, although if you do press it by accident, it will only move it into the recently deleted folder, which will hold it there for you for 30 days in case you need to restore it. We will discuss that recently deleted folder in a few slides when we're talking about deleting items. There's also the edit button in the very top right corner of the screen that we were just on. Pressing on that will allow you to touch up your picture. Along the very bottom row, you'll see a couple of different options. Cancel will just take you back to the full screen view of the picture without changing anything about it. The button next to that is your crop button, if you wanted to crop out the top, bottom, or sides of your image. Next to that is the filter button, which we discussed earlier that you could add filters after you've taken a picture instead of putting them on before you take the picture from the camera app. Clicking there will again allow you to add such filters as black and white or sepia. Next to that is the adjust button. This will allow you to adjust very specific things like the exposure, brightness, and light that's coming into the image. If you've taken an image that you really like but it is a little bit too dark, you could come here to brighten it up superficially. Next to that is the markup button, which you can access by pressing the little circle with dots in it. This will allow you to actually write on the image if you wanted to draw some arrows or circle somebody, and then you can save that to the original copy of the image or save it as a copy. In the very top right corner, you'll see the wizard button, which looks like a magic wand. This will pretty much let the computer edit your image for you, doing the things that the computer automatically thinks will make the image look better. This will normally be pretty good at getting rid of, for instance, red eyes, but isn't very good at correcting a picture's lightness or darkness. When you're done editing the picture, you can press the Done button in the very bottom corner, and that will save it as the original copy. If you do this by accident and you want to go back to the original, all you have to do is press the Edit button again, and press on where it says Revert to Original in the top left corner. Now let's take a look at Memories, which is the next item on the very bottom of the screen next to the Photos option. Memories are essentially computer-generated albums. This is a feature that Apple released about 2 years ago. This allows the computer to look at all of your pictures and group them into what it thinks are similar images, and it will actually prepare an automatic slideshow of those images for you when you click on it. You can see on my screen, it automatically picked out all of the images from my Italy trip and will show the dates of that trip beneath it. If I were to click on that, I could go through a slideshow of every image that I took during that time frame. I also have one called Hanging Out, which is a pretty interesting title for my trip to Cabo earlier in the year. These are an interesting feature, but not one that you'll use very often, most likely. It's more of a gimmick that's cool to look at every now and then to see what the computer thinks are your most important memories. The next main menu item along the bottom of the screen is the Shared button, which looks like a cloud. This is where you can see all of the albums that have been either shared with you or shared by you to other people. These can be very helpful, for instance, on family trips, where maybe you've gone on a cruise and you want everyone who was on the cruise to send each other the pictures. Instead of sending each picture individually to everybody on the trip, you can create a shared album where everyone can add their own pictures into one common area, and then everyone will have access to the other ones that other people have shared into that same place. This sounds a little bit confusing, but it's not that hard to use. Every album that has been shared with you will automatically pop up on this screen, and you can scroll through the pictures like you'd be scrolling through any other album. You can delete yourself from any of these albums by pressing the Edit button in the top corner and then pressing Delete next to any of the albums. You can also create your own album by pressing the plus button in the top corner, adding a title for your album, and then sharing it with whoever you like. The final main menu item along the bottom of the screen is the Albums button. This contains a few default albums that your phone has already generated for you, such as Camera Roll, which is very similar to the Photos tab that we talked about earlier, except it won't do any organizing for you besides reverse chronological order. This is also where you can access the Favorites album, which we talked about earlier, which is associated directly with that Love button. Any picture that you press the Love button on will automatically pop up here as well as in the Photos page. There's also a People album in here, where the computer will have already gone through all of your pictures and identified the faces of people that you constantly take pictures of. Pictures with those matching faces will pop up in the People album. There's also Places, where if you click on it, it will bring up a map with all of the pictures that were taken in each location across the globe. If I were to click on that now, every picture that I took in Italy would show up on Italy's geographic area. Other than that, every other album that shows up here would be one that you created yourself. Let's talk about how to do that. To create your own album, all you have to do is go up to the top of the screen where you see the plus button towards the left. Click on that, give your album a name, and then it will prompt you to choose pictures to add to the album. You can scroll all the way through all of your pictures and place a blue check mark on any picture that you want to be added into the album. You can theoretically select all or none of your pictures at this point, and then go back and add or delete later. As soon as you've chosen your initial selection of pictures, the album will pop up in the bottom of this album screen, where you can go back and access them, add to it, or delete it by pressing the Edit button when you open up that album. Albums can be a great tool for organization, but you'll notice that they are a little bit tedious to create the first time around. I don't use them very often, but you may use them if you are a big fan of keeping your photos organized, besides by location and chronological order. You can also delete any of the albums by going up to the Edit button in the top right corner of the Albums page and selecting any album on that page to be deleted. A question that I get quite frequently is clients asking me how they can save space on their phone because they're running out of storage. You have to keep in mind that pictures are one of the largest file types on your phone behind apps and videos. So, going through and deleting your photos every now and then is a good idea, both for organizational cleanliness and for the overall health of your phone. If you want to delete large amounts at a time, go to the camera roll album from the album screen and press the select button in the top right corner. This will allow you to place a blue check on any picture that you want to select and then delete. Go through and select up to 100 items at a time, and then press the trash button in the bottom right corner. This will allow you to delete many pictures at a time as opposed to manually selecting them one by one. The final feature of the Photos app that we'll talk about is searching. This is a feature that's getting better each and every month. You can search by clicking on the magnifying glass in the top right corner of the Albums page. By clicking here, it'll bring up your keyboard and allow you to type in any query that you want. At this point, machine learning has allowed the machine to actually go through and identify everyday objects. So you can even search for things like tables and chairs if there's a specific image that you're looking for. However, this feature is most useful for searching up a specific date. If you know that you went to, for instance, San Francisco on June 6th, you could search up June 6, 2018, and you'll be able to see all of the pictures that were taken on that day. You can also search up locations such as Lake Tahoe, and it'll bring you every single picture that was taken at Lake Tahoe, no matter what the date was. This feature will be very helpful in the future though, because you will soon be able to search for any object that you want. Aside from just tables and chairs, you could be searching for trees, cars, necklaces, even people at some point, most likely. So, keep trying out this feature because it will keep getting better and better. That will conclude the third installment of our iOS Basics course. This course was proudly brought to you by ItKid, your local, affordable residential tech help service. If you have any questions regarding the video, or you would like to schedule some in-home tech help yourself, please feel free to reach out to us from the contact information that's provided in the bottom right of the screen in front of you. We hope you enjoyed the video, and we hope to see you back for the fourth installment soon.